Okay, so this episode of the John 1911 podcast is going to be a little different. This is a follow up on asking for feedback for audio volume. And so we have received a number of messages from those of you requesting that we up the audio. So um, I'm not going to get into too much detail as to why the audio has been lower. Just suffice it to say that we have switched software a couple months ago, and that has caused the issue. So we're publishing a short episode today as a test to tweak the audio, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. Kraken and I were talking about the release of a new hunting round for the AR-15 called the 400 Legend. So if you notice any difference with the audio, not this intro because the intro I record differently. If you notice any difference in the audio or not any difference in the audio, please email me back at podcast@john1911.com and let me know what you think. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is an audio test between Kraken and Marky, and we are going to be having a big blowout fight about something called 400 Legend. So I think it is basically gay 4570, and Kraken says it's the future of hunting in ARs in North America. So throw you under the bus. Say something, start talking so I can record your levels.
And this is coming from a guy that sends me pictures of gay ass foo-foo water cans.
Hey, no, I got news for you. That water can is LaCroix, which is like the cheap Kroger sparkling water. That LaCroix, that sparkling water is apparently the poor white Bud Light of sparkling water. Like, I have learned so much about American culture with the drama from, the Bud Light stuff. I didn't know that if somebody asked the question, what is the drink of choice for poor white people, that the answer would actually be Bud Light. Like, I don't know what that would be, but I would have thought it was, I don't know, Diet Coke at McDonald's. Like, I don't know, like, okay, like I didn't know this was the drink of considered poor white people. It's like, all right, what about all these people that,
Around here, it really isn't.
yeah, like,
Uh, Around here, trailer park beer would be like Natty Light, uh, Old Style, Steel Reserve, some of that cheap ass stuff. Uh, Bud Light has actually got a huge part of the market share around here. Before that all blew up between Bud Light and Busch Light, but
yeah, like I just
uh, we're kind of beating a dead horse on that. So let's get back to where you're wrong about the 400 legend and I'm right.
I just I'm not I'm not wrong about it. I'm just I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, because the pictures they're showing, it's showing it in a lever gun. And it's like, all right, well, if you need a straight walled cartridge and you want power and you want to hunt deer east of the Mississippi, which is supposedly that's what this is for. It's not for out where you're at. Well, I don't know, maybe Nebraska it is, but like not out in the high country out
Uh,
west. But it's like
no.
4570 is now legal in these straight wall states. At least it's legal in Ohio. I'm not sure about Indiana. It's always been legal in Kentucky. And then, well, if you want some high power straight wall, you don't want to do a 4570. There's so many 44 Magnums all the way around here. The only reason I see this having any appeal is if you want to get more power out of a straight walled AR-15 round.
Yeah, see, now you got to remember, I live in Nebraska, but I was actually born and raised in
Hmm.
Iowa, so we were a shotgun only
Yeah, we
state.
we were we were
Uh,
shotgun only here until within the last decade, dude. You're shocked, yeah.
yeah, that's the same way here. I went to Ohio pretty much about the same time. Illinois is a shotgun straight wall state. Uh, Minnesota, I believe, the it's either the northern half is shotgun or the southern half of Minnesota is shotgun. So they get into that game. There's 7 or 8 states that are big whitetail
Hmm.
states that have went from shotgun to allowing the straight wall cartridge. The the 44 mag is great, especially in a lever gun. I've taken several deer with it, out to about 50 or 60 yards. Then it starts to fall off pretty quickly as far as terminal ballistics. It bleeds off a lot of
Sure.
energy. The the spire point type of bullets that you can use in 350 and 450 gives it a ballistic advantage, but with those blown out cases in an AR platform, reaching out to 200 yards now is nothing for either one of those cartridges. So you ran into two big problems with the 450 Bushmaster in an AR platform. Magazines were pretty finicky. Uh,
Oh, dude, we had a
I
politician show up at the John 1911 range wanting to zero his guns for deer season, and so we let him show up, and he showed up. He had a 450 gun, and he literally one of his one magazine because it had to be modified. Like he looked like he had cut this thing open with a pair of pliers. I mean, it was
oh
just
yeah,
ridiculous, you know. And it was like
yeah.
whatever. Like he at 100 yards, he was 4 or 5 feet high.
Mhm. So the problem with the 450 and the AR platform right out of the gate is because of the diameter of the round, they just don't fit very well in AR magazines. They basically become a single
Mm-hmm.
stack. So you switch out the floor plate, and that takes care of a lot of the feeding issues. And
You mean the follow? You mean
if you're
you mean the
smart,
follower?
the follower, excuse me. Uh, and then you take a Dremel tool and you notch the front lip of the magazine, and it keeps it from dragging
Yeah.
when it's stripping the round out. But what guys found out really quickly is there were a lot of failure to feeds with 450 and the AR platform.
Yeah.
So what they wound up doing was grinding off the 6 o'clock locking lug
Oh God.
up by the feed ramp, which is fine because it's you've got your other locking lugs to lock it in. It really didn't hurt the integrity of the system. But what was happening is that 6 o'clock lug was basically scraping the bottom of the case enough when it was inserting into the chamber, and that's where you would get your failure to feeds. So guys started. Some companies even started doing that from the factory, eliminating that 6 o'clock plug. The biggest problem with it in the AR platform is it has a lot of recoil to it for what it is, even in a gas system.
Yeah.
So then the 350 came out about the same time, and out to about 200 yards, pretty ballistically similar to a 243.
Yeah. I've looked at the number. I tell
With
you what. Now I've looked at the 350. And I remember I'm not again, you're the reloader, I'm not. So, I shoot guns. You know a lot more of this than I ever will. But I seem to remember a lot of people were looking at the published data for 350 and they were calling bullshit on it because it was basically they were publishing data at max powder loads for like 20-inch guns, which nobody was doing. You know what I mean? It's like this isn't real. Like
mhm.
no one, or like maybe like a 22 or 24-inch barrel. Like, you know, so is 400 Legend supposed to replace 350 Legend, or is it supposed to be quote more better?
Base, yeah, it's kind of a more better deal. Uh, the 350 Legend, the where a lot of the disputes over ballistics came in, is Winchester made 145 grain, just a cheapo full metal jacket practice load, and it was very anemic, very unreliable. Accuracy was shit, but it was like $12 a box for ammo, so it was cheap to practice with and get used to. The full house hunting loads were closer to the specs. I've taken personally 6 deer with a 350 Legend out of a 16-inch upper, and all but one was dead right there, DRP.
What was the range?
Anywhere from 13 yards out to 128.
Well, okay. So I guess my point is, and I'm also not the world's biggest hunter. I haven't hunted in a while, but the whole, and I realize I'm about to speak in tropes, and I'm not qualified because I mean, I'm a gun guy, but I'm not this big ass hunter like a lot of listeners. But it's like these straight wall cartridges are for straight wall states for white-tailed deer, and the typical would be east of the Mississippi. You get that argument of like, well, an 80-yard shot. And, we could easily, at our range here in the Midwest, I mean, I can set you up for a 500-yard shot on a deer. But, I mean, okay, so I think 350 Legend is probably underpowered. But if you're shooting it from 13 yards to maybe about 120 yards, like I know dudes with shotguns, here in Ohio that were dropping deer at 80 and 100 yards, and even like with some 20 gauge rifled slugs at 120 yards.
Mhm.
It's like this obsession with like trying to get this to work in an AR. And it's like, okay, so 400 Legend, someone's gonna try to shoot a deer at 300 yards with one of these, and it's like, okay, I mean, I guess if you want to do that, you're going to practice enough with 400 Legend, or I just, unless you're totally ass eaten up with having to hunt with an AR-15 format rifle, which is America's rifle. I get it. I don't know. I'd rather have a
Mhm.
45-70, or I'd rather have I mean, if it's straight wall, I just feel like this is a pretty niche cartridge.
It is for the straight wall states. I had a 45-70 and a Marlin guide gun, kicked like a mule. Uh, and I'm not recoil averse, but a lot of people are.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you get into the ARs, the biggest thing is you're losing just a ton of recoil when you
Yeah.
start going to the 350, and that's the biggest problem with the 450. Once they ironed out the feeding bugs, was the recoil.
Well, what about okay, but what about
So
okay,
what?
but what about the guys like in all these states they have four like here in Ohio, pistol caliber hunting was legal for a long time before they eventually allowed.
Mhm.
The only straight wall I think they allow in Ohio, I think is 45-70. I don't even know if they allow 350 Legend. They might, but I think okay, it's like well, like there's some pretty hot 44 mag hunting loads out there or options with hunting loads. I'm like, I don't know why if all these people have 44 mag lever guns, unless you're just totally an AR nerd and you just want to spend money buying shit. I don't know why you would drop 44 mag in your current system to try to shoot 400 whatever this thing is, 400 Legend in an AR.
Well, I think part of it comes into around here. Lever guns aren't really a thing and haven't been. Uh, and then of course you have the problems with Marlin being bought out, and Ruger's just now starting to crank out some lever guns. So Henry was about the only option around here for the last 6, 8, 10 years, since we could go to the straight wall stuff in a rifle. Uh, Everybody and their cat's got an AR, so you just call up Bear Creek and say, send me a 350 upper, send me a 450 upper. And for the most part, boom, there you go. And then you put a red dot on it, and it's a pretty effective deer rifle actually.
Okay.
And you turn around, you go coyote hunting, you pop a couple pins, and you throw your 5.56 upper on it, and off you go.
So your argument would be, if I were to extrapolate what you're saying is, it's the Goldilocks round for these AR guns. 450 wasn't really designed for hunters. 450 was designed by gun nerds to try to just do this crazy shit on AR-15 because they were trying to. If I recall, the marketing on 450 was like a 4570. They're like, we can touch 4570 with the right loadings, and then 350 came out, and the reality is there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in the ballistics of that round. And so maybe the middle ground, the perfect temperature porridge for Goldilocks is the 400. And maybe that's where it needs to be because it'll fly better and it'll have more ass, but it's not going to beat the shit out of you and it's going to feed better too than 450. Do I have that right?
You're getting really close. I mean, this news just broke on this today, so I haven't fully digested numbers yet. But I would, if I were to make an analogy, I would say let's go back 25 years, 30 years. What was the downfall of the 10 millimeter, especially, when the FBI adopted it with the 1076?
Recoil and breakage.
Okay. And at that same time, what was the argument for going? Let's go back to about 1988. What was the argument for going to 10 millimeter in the first place?
Penetration.
Which you didn't get from
38
9
special
millimeter.
and not an old time 9 millimeter.
Exactly.
Like the actual thing that totally made the 10 millimeter a thing for a hot minute was the one round. I guess it was a 38 special round. I don't know if it's 38 or 9 millimeter. I don't remember, but it's functionally and not quite the same. But was the one round that didn't penetrate the guy. It went through it when the guy's arm at the Miami shootout and stopped just short of his heart.
Yeah.
And if it had gone a little bit farther, it would have dropped the one guy out of the fight immediately.
Mm-hmm. And so a lot of agents couldn't handle the recoil of the 10 millimeter. Common theory at the time was 9 millimeter wasn't enough. Uh, there weren't enough reliable platforms that people considered reliable in 45 without going to a 1911, which the single action scared the crap out of a lot of administrative types. So, what did we come up with to split the difference between 10 millimeter and 9 millimeter?
40 Smith and Wesson, because it was all if they're going to if
Bingo.
they're going to download if you're going to download the 10 millimeter to make it not recoil as much, it was like, well, why do we have this long ass case?
Yep. So to me, that's kind of possibly where the 400 legend is getting in there. Better performance than a 350, doesn't beat you up like a 450. A lot of the same platforms are going to be compatible, so there's not going to be a big learning curve. I just don't know if the market's going to be there because guys that have 450s don't want to get rid of them. Guys that have 350s are, for the most part, pretty happy with them, at least around here. I probably know 20 guys that have just whacked and stacked deer to hell wouldn't have it with 350 legend. So the 400 is gonna come in to somebody that hasn't jumped into the AR hunting game yet, or for whatever reason just wants to buy another upper, because uppers from places like Bear Creek, you're probably going to look at 350 $400 for an upper. So it's not like it's a huge investment to grab it up. uh, so if it's not going to be a huge investment, we can get a little bump over 350 in performance, don't get beat up, and don't have the price per round of the 450. Could be a winner in some circles. It's not gonna, I don't think it's going to break new ground like 350 and 450 did, but I think there's definitely going to be some market for it.
Well, if what you are saying works out to be true the way you're saying it, I think it's almost kind of like 6.5 Creedmoor. And what I mean by that is, there was, 260 Remington, and then there was, the 6.5 Swede, and 6.5 Creedmoor came along, and a lot of people were like, "Why are you doing this?" There was a lot of pushback on 6.5 Creedmoor, and over time, 6.5 Creedmoor took over.
Hmm.
because people realized the advantages of it and, the utility of it in actions and relative to the 308 size stuff and and the range and the lack of recoil. And over time, like maybe, I mean, honestly, maybe you're convincing me because I feel like 350 Legend was oversold and never really did enough. 450 Bushmaster was for it's not it's that's just not real. That's for people that want to goof around. And 400 Legend could end up 400 Legend's probably going to kill 350 Legend long term. And if it becomes what you're describing, it maybe could make the AR truly a widely adopted. Maybe I can't believe I'm saying this. Maybe 400 Legend in an AR will be the 21st century's 3030.
Very possible. You had me right up until you said replacing the 350. I think you went the wrong direction. I think if it relegates anything to the basement, it'll be the 450.
I
Um,
don't think 450. Yes, okay, yeah, okay, I will say this. Yeah, I think 400 kills 450 long before it kills 350. 350
yeah,
would not die, but 450, I think the 450s I've seen are just maybe it's just the people that run them. Like they're not that serious. You know what I mean? They're again, I'm really stepping on landmines here. But what I have seen for people showing up at 450, the John 1911 range, it's like it is I mean, it is just a dirtbag shit show of just clusterfuck monkey bullshit. Like it's just crazy. And so, like, oh yeah, some guy shooting 450, and you're like, yep, this guy probably can't shoot and doesn't really know what he's doing. He's a gun guy, but
yeah,
he can't really. He thinks he can shoot, but everyone that shoots professionally knows that guy can't shoot.
yeah.
And maybe, it's interesting. So I'll tell you what, this is actually, I'm going to say this, but I don't want this to go too long. We did this as an audio test. I think did I say audio test at the beginning? This has been such a
Yeah.
good conversation, Kraken, because you're always real good at this. I'm probably just going to publish this as a short episode because it was too good not to publish.
Well, it's hot off the presses, so it's kind of a scoop in a way.
It is. So
I mean, I
I'll
just
have to,
learned of it an hour ago.
and actually a bunch of us are heading up to the NRA show tomorrow. So I'm sure it'll be up there. That's probably why it was released today.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I don't know if I get a chance to run across it. I mean, we're just going to go and look at a few things. There's a few
yeah.
things Doc needs to look at. I'm gonna probably hit Wilson. I may look at some other stuff. I actually am looking. I'm super curious about getting a what do you call it? Clay bird thrower, like a big electronic one for the
Oh, okay.
range. Just seeing what price them and
Yeah,
just kind of seeing what's going on. But if I see anything on this 400 Legend, we'll definitely follow up on it. And I'll publish some pictures or whatever. I don't know if we're going to do any video up there, but we'll
yeah.
definitely do it. So, anything else you want to add before we toss it?
No, interesting little conversation. So I'll be curious to find out if you see anything on the 400 up there.
Okay, well, this wraps up the unknown episode of the John 1911 podcast. If you want to see any more stories or pictures or links, please go to our website at john1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun, everybody. Have a good day.
See you later.